Hi! In my first video, I talked about what was probably my first game that I ever played. Well, it was either Xonix or a certain Pac-Man game. That's right, we're gonna be talking about Pac-Man games this time. There was a time, long ago, when everybody and their mother knew what a Pac-Man was. And apparently that time is still very much ongoing. I asked Gemini about it, and apparently Pac-Man has one of the highest brand recognition rates in the entire world. So I ain't gotta explain anything. But I will. You're a guy in a maze. You eat dots for points and you run away from ghosts. Sometimes you get bonuses. That's the game. I have a few games here that I'd like to go through, and it'll be interesting to see if this basic formula ever evolves into something more complex. Let's get started. PC-Man is a Pac-Man clone created by Greg Kuperberg and published under Orion Software in 1982. Supposedly, PC-Man is one of the first real PC alternatives to playing the original Pac-Man at the arcades, which had come out 2 years prior in 1980. It's missing any cutscenes between levels though. PC-Man may not look like much at first glance, but when you compare it to some of the other stuff that was available around at the same time, it starts to look downright gorgeous. Not to mention smooth. The special thing about Orion Software games is that they all use a built-in timer. This means that you can play games like PC-Man on modern computers without having to adjust your CPU cycles. The controls feel a bit clunky though. You can't hold down a key to turn a corner, for example. This leads to the need for precise inputs. Try and make a turn too early, and your inputs will be ignored. Turn too late, and that ghost that was chasing you will eat you. Eating dots will also slow you down, so you'll need to take that into account if you see ghosts heading your way. But where does it end, though? That's the thing about arcade games. They sorta just go on forever, depending on your skill and appetite. Your current score is all that matters. There's no predefined end state. There's only you and your next high score. See? That one there. Just sitting there, quietly mocking you. A big part of it is setting goals for yourself. So, for PC-Man, I set myself a few. Reach the 3rd level and get at least 10,000 points. The game isn't exactly easy, but I did manage to reach my goals after a decent amount of tries. I think if you manage to utilize the warp points properly, then you'll probably reach a higher score than I did. Nowadays, you would consider PC-Man as abandonware, since Greg never got around to officially making it freeware. But since the game was an unlicensed clone of Pac-Man, I'd say its legal status was in a bit of a gray area right from the start. It's still one of the best early Pac-Man clones, and still supremely playable thanks to those built-in timers. Go try it out for yourself, and see if you can get to level 4. Let's jump 7 years forward in time, and see how things have improved. CD-Man is a Pac-Man clone made by Attila Biru and Anders Moret, and released in 1989 under Creative Dimensions, and what the hell is this thing? Ah, there we go. Much better. We can immediately see a notable improvement over PC-Man. The graphics. As a kid, I thought the graphics in this game were gorgeous. Now, pixel graphics don't really age, so in my eyes, it still looks good. Mechanically, however, there isn't that much of a difference between PC-Man and CD-Man, despite the 7-year difference. You're still going around a maze and eating dots, much like before. It does let you tweak a lot more options though, like game speed, controls, and sound. You can even take turns in a 2-player mode. The biggest difference is probably the level design. Every level is visually interesting and has a different layout with different warp point locations. You have a park, a pirate cove, outer space, the wonders of the world, and a lake during nighttime. The first level even has a unique mechanic where you have to pick up a special key before the gates open up to let you access the rest of the level. Otherwise, you have effectively the same types of dots, power pills, and bonus items as in PC-Man. But, is the game supposed to be this hard? You only have 4 lives, and I couldn't figure out how to get more. Increasing my score didn't give me any, and neither were there any special extra life pickups. A full run is a total of 5 levels. So that means that you can afford to spend less than 1 life per level. I made it my goal to complete all 5 levels in 1 run. It took me quite a lot of tries before I got more comfortable with the difficulty. You see, this game is where I started to notice a degree of strategy. When you eat enemies, they respawn at the hideout as hostile, even when other enemies are still scared. If you don't eat them, they will try to get as far away from you as possible. This leads into the situation where you can effectively force the enemies to loosely stay on one side of the maze while you clear the other. It'll take them a long time to get back to you, giving you a chance, for example, to position yourself at a warp point once they start getting closer. You can play the pre-release 1.5 version of the game for 3 levels, with the final level being somewhat incomplete. Version 2.0 changed the main character into what is called a snoofer to avoid copyright issues, and contains 5 levels. I watched some YouTube videos where beating the final level triggered some sort of end the game screen, but in the version I played, the game just restarted from the first level, letting you keep your score, of course. The game files were liberated by the original developers in 2007, making CD-Man fully free to play. Go try it out. See if you can find a version of the game that has the end screens intact. Okay, so we've got more options, better graphics, and more interesting level design. How does the next game change things up? Greedy was made by Eclipse in 1996. When this main menu theme hit me for the first time when I stumbled across this game back in the day, I knew I'd found something cool. There's another 7 years between CD-Man and Greedy. The thing that immediately jumps out as a big difference is the music, which is one of the best things about the game. Made by Christophe Rezinier, or Rez for short, the music has different tracks for main gameplay, the menu screen, and the end screen. But what's special is that you have separate smaller tracks for each power. My favorite one is the one for reverse controls. Here's the one for darkness. Yeehaw! The one for extra speed is pretty funny too. They're great, and work wonders to elevate the gameplay. Greedy introduces a special mechanic called boosting. You have a special bar that acts as an indicator to how much boost you have left. Pressing the boost key gives you, well, a speed boost for as long as the button is held down. Some levels practically expect you to have some boost available if you don't want to lose lives trying to complete them. There's also a separate button to use a joker. Jokers can apparently be used to disable the current option, which is the game's term for power-ups. The joker button didn't seem to ever do anything in my case, and frankly I have no idea what it's supposed to actually do, and whether I need something to be able to use it, and why I would ever want to disable my current option in the first place. Greedy comes with a massive total of 60 playable levels that features some seriously player-hostile design. They often feature long corridors where it's very easy to get trapped if you don't have any boost left. There are also plenty of dead ends, jogged corridors, and staggered turns. What's worse, the warp points aren't visible and are in different places each level, so you're left wondering if the next corridor is going to suddenly have ghosts warping in. I'll tell you right here and now that I was never going to complete all 60 levels without cheats or save states or something like that. So I wanted to set a more realistic goal: 20 levels. If I could manage to complete a run that manages to reach at least 20 levels, that's over 30% of the levels, and I'm gonna say it's good enough. Well, it took a lot of tries, but I finally had a godlike run where I managed to reach that number. I can't really say what the winning strategy was, beyond simply learning the levels and where those invisible warp points were. Greedy is nowadays distributed as freeware by Edromel Studio and is fully free to download and play. It's available for DOS, Windows, and Linux, and definitely worth checking out. See if you can make it past the first 5 levels or so. Right, so now we have awesome music, manual abilities, and a vastly increased level count. What's next? Well, we have probably one of the newer games that I've talked about at this channel so far. So, I wanted to try a more modern version of Pac-Man, to see how far we've come. Just not for 30 or 40 euros. So when I saw a relatively new Pac-Man game on sale, I went for it. Behold! Pac-Man Championship Edition Deluxe Plus by Minor Loader Software and Bandai Namco. Let's call it CE for short. What I expected to get is some kind of 3D HD Pac-Man with multiple layers of complexity added onto it. What I got instead is a version of Pac-Man that remains surprisingly true to the original, with a few small quirks sprinkled on top. Maybe that's why it's got so many positive reviews on Steam. So, if it's a relatively faithful re-implementation, what is there to say? Let's focus on a few main highlights. In PCMan, for example, eating dots slows you down. So if you have a long corridor filled with dots and a ghost is chasing you, you're gonna get got. In CD-Man, the enemies are just straight up faster than you at all times, so using warps is the only method of outrunning them. In Greedy, you at least have a boost meter that you can use in case of emergencies, but that can and will run out. The pattern here is that it's relatively easy for the enemies to catch up to you and ruin your day. CE introduces a special mechanic for this: corner cutting. When you want to turn a corner, pushing and holding the direction that you're about to head toward will make you perform a quick turn, giving you a bit of breathing room from your pursuers. In this sense, there's always a method available to you that lets you outrun your enemies, but it takes a bit of skill to use. Ghosts in CE can be in a few additional states than just hostile and scared. Ghosts that spawn outside their hideout will be sleeping, meaning they will not actively chase the player. As the player moves past them, they will wake up and become angry, and will relentlessly and predictably chase the player, following the same exact path that he or she takes. If a ghost touches any other angry ghosts chasing Pac-Man, they will also become angry and form an ever-increasing conga line of ghosts. This can lead to massive points if you pick up a power pellet and eat the entire stack of now scared ghosts. CE also gives the player access to bombs, which will return all ghosts into the hideout when used. The game will even provide you with the perfect moment to do so, as whenever you're about to get hit by a ghost, the game will slow the speed down for a second or two. PC-Man and CD-Man don't have any manual abilities like this, whereas Greedy has separate buttons for boosting and jokers. Taking all these three features, corner cutting, angry ghosts and bombs, into account, CE seems to give the player a lot more options in managing ghosts, to the point where the amount of extra lives that the player also gets feels almost too generous. Interestingly, CE doesn't really have level transitions in the classic sense, where once you eat up all the dots, the player and the enemy positions are reset and the maze is refilled with dots. Instead, eating up all the dots on the right or left sides of the level will cause new dots and/or special bonus items to appear. The levels do have an end condition, unless you're playing an endless game mode. For example, eating 3 special bonus items or playing for 10 minutes. The game also gives the player a lot of control and options outside the main gaming loop, such as tweaking game speeds and theming, unlocking new levels and game modes, and seeing how you measure up on the global leaderboards through online connectivity. As far as this particular game goes, I didn't really set myself any goals, other than unlocking as much stuff as I can. But here's the problem. I couldn't even really tell you all the stuff that can be unlocked in the game, because I'm not too sure how to do that. The game doesn't provide you with a checklist of what to do in order to unlock different game modes, for example. If you're in the market for a modern but relatively pure Pac-Man re-implementation, I'd say CE does a fine job of being exactly that. If it happens to come on sale, it'll most likely cost only a few euros, and I'd say it's worth the price. Pac-Man wasn't much of a big deal around where I lived as a kid, and PC-Man had been around for a few years before I was even born. It's still an interesting coincidence that it happened to be one of the first games I remember playing, as virtual entertainment slowly made its way over here to Northern Europe. I wanted to rush this video out before the year is out. There's probably less gags and jokes and whatnot. I hope it doesn't show too much. I started making this type of content at around the start of this year. To those of you who have stuck with me so far, thank you. In the next video, we'll be racing toward the stars. Happy holidays, and have a nice 2026.